I felt like I did something wrong in asking for help.
It just felt very inappropriate and disrespectful to her.
In a moment of desperation, this woman reached out for help and ended up in handcuffs. The U of T student says she was left feeling like a criminal after her attempt to get help for suicidal thoughts ended up with campus police placing her in cuffs and leading her out of the school's Mississauga campus. Angelina King joins us live now with more on this. And Angelina, this happened at a sensitive time on campus.
Yeah, exactly. So this happened 5 days after a student died by suicide at the school's downtown campus. That was on September 27th. Then this happened at the Mississauga campus. And during this time, students were voicing concerns about mental health services. And the student I spoke with for this story says that she had got mental health help on campus before, but this was the first time she left feeling traumatized. And just to note, we are protecting her identity due to the sensitive nature of the incident.
It was very dehumanizing, to be honest, and very scary and confusing.
She wanted help but wound up in handcuffs. A friend went with her to see a campus psychiatrist, but they were told it could take months. So she saw a nurse. Together, they came up with a safety plan, which included staying at her friend's house that night. Before she left, the nurse made her speak with campus security.
The minute I told them that it was a real location, it was a bridge, but that I would be going to my friend's house, they stopped everything and they told me that I would be put under arrest.
They were taking her to a hospital. She says she was calm and told them the handcuffs were unnecessary. She was willing to go.
I was bewildered. I couldn't believe that this was happening to my friend who at this point had been so cooperative and she'd been so open.
They say the officers covered the cuffs and escorted her through a busy building.
I felt like I did something wrong in asking for help.
Like truly everyone was looking. Her face was red and she was crying and breathing was very erratic and, she had just hyperventilated.
They say the handcuffs weren't removed until a nurse at the hospital deemed it okay. She spent the night and was prescribed medication.
According to one part of the Provincial Mental Health Act, police can transport people to facilities if it's signed off on by a doctor. And although there are no written rules about restraints in those instances, one expert says handcuffs are often used unnecessarily.
The main thing to keep in mind in these discussions is this tenuous balancing act between safety versus stigma.
She says there are instances that require restraints, but says in university settings, transport should be left to mental health professionals.
These types of blanket policies of using law enforcement, marked vehicles, uniformed police, and handcuffs are extremely stigmatizing, and they can have long-term impacts that are detrimental for someone's mental health, and they might not come back to us later to ask for help again when they need it.
The school says student safety is the primary concern and that campus police have mental health training and use handcuffs on a case-by-case basis.
The university is looking at its response to this case and just looking to make sure that we have consistent practices and protocols.
Meanwhile, the student has this message.
You can have mental health professionals along your side that will not handcuff you, but that are in the profession because they want to help people.
So I spoke with a number of U of T students, particularly one woman who started a mental health advocacy group after a student died by suicide at the end of September at the St. George campus. She says she hasn't seen any major changes from the school, but says that student groups are really working to make things better. Now, the school says there's a mental health task force that's working on it. It recently released a list of things that need to be improved. That includes things like communication, services, and culture. Feedback sessions on that list are being held across the 3 campuses this week. For anyone looking for help, you can call Canada Suicide Prevention Service, and that number is on your screen.
And even though it's unfortunate she ended up in cuffs, it's important that people do seek the help when they need it. Thank you for this, Angelina.
Absolutely.
A mother and a child have been rushed to hospital after being hit by a GO train in Kitchener.
It's very concerning for all of us, for all of the staff on site, and we're thinking about them and hopefully their recovery.
It happened just before 3 this afternoon at a crossing near Lancaster Street West in Victoria. Police say the mother and child were airlifted to a hospital near Hamilton. The 2 were both alive at the time the train was evacuated, and there may be an impact to the Kitchener GO line. The crossing has flashing lights, bells, and a crossing arms that come down Police are investigating how this could have happened. The roads have been messy, and police say there have been hundreds of collisions in the last week, like this one on Highway 12 near Port Perry last Thursday. This is the scene after a tow truck driver was struck and killed while helping to pull a stranded car out of a ditch on the slippery highway. Today, friends and family of 56-year-old Beverly Todd Burgess came together to remember him and pay their respects at his funeral. As Talia Ritchie reports, the service also brought dozens of tow truck drivers together to raise awareness about the dangers of the job.
Hundreds of tow trucks lined the road into Bowmanville Cemetery today. They're here for Todd Burgess. He was killed on the job last week. His colleague and friend, Brad, was there.
Nightmares, I'm not gonna lie. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and me seeing my colleague, my buddy, laying in the ditch, lifeless. Nothing, you wouldn't want to pray that on anybody.
He says that morning someone else on scene yelled, warning that a car was speeding towards them. A couple of people jumped into the ditch and even onto the road to avoid it. But Todd didn't have time.
He didn't have nowhere to go. It was just instant.
Many of the drivers we spoke with today said this isn't the first time they've attended a funeral for a tow truck driver in 2019. Of course, they're here to pay their respects today, but also to send a message.
Every one of us has probably had a close call at one time or another.
Move over and slow down. That's the message stitched onto the back of jackets and made into bumper stickers in Todd's memory. These drivers don't want to lose any more of their own.
I've got to make sure that I get to go home at the end of the night, and that's what we're all looking for, every one of these guys here.
Todd drove a taxi before he drove a tow truck. He was loved and well known in Port Perry. Friends also say he was funny, caring, and an excellent conversationalist.
Might cost you a couple hours of your time because he's such a friendly guy.
For all these qualities and more, friends say Todd will be missed.
He was really kind, caring guy. I remember I ran out of gas one time and he gave me a taxi ride and I tried to flip him some money and he said, no, just buy me a coffee sometime.
It's just a tragedy to lose somebody, so kind-hearted.
Talia Ritchie, CBC News, Bowmanville.
We are getting an update tonight on the work of the team examining how Toronto police handle missing persons cases.
We're speaking to those who have reported people missing, either the ones that are the subject of the MacArthur case or others that come forward and say that they've had people go missing who are important in their lives, and they describe how the police dealt with them.
The work is part of the independent civil review into missing persons investigations. It was launched on the heels of the Toronto police investigation of serial killer Bruce MacArthur. MacArthur pleaded guilty to the deaths of 8 men, many of them with ties to the city's LGBTQ community. There was criticism police don't pay as close attention to cases involving marginalized and vulnerable people. The team also launched an online survey this week. The aim is to get feedback from as many people as possible. The anonymous survey will be open until spring. The civil review report is expected to be released by January of 2021. Supporters of Don Cherry took to the street today outside Rogers headquarters, upset over the broadcaster's decision to fire the Coach's Corner co-host over his controversial comments about immigrants. As Lauren Pelly explains, those who showed up in support of Cherry today say free speech is under threat, while others say it's just business.
Around 24 protesters gathered outside the Rogers building this afternoon, holding up Canadian flags and signs with slogans like "Cancel culture is wrong." Many shared a similar stance.
We're here supporting Don Cherry, and we're here supporting freedom of speech.
This politically correct business is just killing us.
You left-wing.
Those supporters say Don Cherry has every right to share his many opinions, including his latest comments on Saturday night.
You people love you. They come here, whatever it is. You love our way of life. You love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies.
Critics say his rant went too far, and the debate is playing out online, with some calling his ousting an attack on free speech, while others wrote, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences, and Cherry hasn't lost his rights, just his platform. Freedom of expression for Cherry and everyone else is protected in Canada under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but some say this is something different.
I don't think the topic and the reason he's been terminated from a company is over free speech. It's a business decision.
This former Labatt executive and marketing expert says companies respond to both public outcry and pressure from advertisers.
Advertisers are still a lifeblood to any major property or broadcast like the NHL or Hockey Night in Canada.
It's not clear what role sponsors played here, but a current Labatt spokesperson said in a statement, "As a sponsor of the broadcast, we immediately expressed our concerns and respect the decision which was made by Sportsnet." Meanwhile, Cherry's fans maintain he never should have gotten the boot.
There's so many politically correct people nowadays, it's getting way out of hand. So I'm glad Mr. Cherry is standing up for what he thinks.
The man himself said he was willing to make amends.
I had a meeting with Rogers, and it was a pretty good meeting with the two bosses, and I said I'd come on and explain and what I said and how I said it and what I should have said, and that wasn't good enough.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
And we're hearing from Ron MacLean for the first time tonight since Cherry's firing.
I'm not saying anything to the subject right now. I said to you, I don't mean to run away or skulk away or evade, but I have to have these days to make sure I'm right in what I say this weekend, to think about all that's going on and process it, and that's where I'm at.
Our camera caught up with the Hockey Night in Canada host as he was leaving work today. On Sunday, MacLean made an on-air apology for not saying anything during Cherry's remarks. MacLean said he will be on the show this weekend.
Snow in November? No problem. I'm Greg Ross at Horseshoe Valley Ski Resort, where skiers are hitting the slopes earlier than ever before. Whoa, that was a lot of snow. We'll have that story coming up.
Hospitals in this province are sounding the alarm about overcrowding even before flu season arrives. They are calling for urgent action from the provincial government. Let's bring in our Queen's Park reporter, Mike Crawley. And Mike, how serious is the overcrowding situation in hospitals right now?
Well, Dwight, I've been speaking with some hospital executives who are really concerned. And to give you a sense of just how bad it is, one of them told me that he made 100% sure that his mother got her flu shot because there is no way that he wants her in hospital this winter. So the situation is that hospital occupancy rates usually go down a little bit in the summertime and the fall, but that easing off simply didn't happen this year. And so what that means is hospitals are significantly more jammed than usual at this time of year. So the officials are worried about what happens come winter when flu season hits and the demand for beds spikes, as it always does. The big part of the problem, what's causing this, is people who are stuck in hospital because they can't get the home care or the nursing home spot that they need. Take a look at this. You'll see just how much that crunch for beds has worsened this past year. Last September, there were around 4,600 patients occupying hospital beds that were waiting for other levels of care. The stats for this September show it's more than 5,400 patients waiting now. That is an 18% increase in just a year. Now here's another stat that shows how that backlog affects the quality of your health care. In September last year, a patient who gets admitted to a hospital through the ER, they had to wait on average a little more than 16 hours to get a bed on a ward. Well, in September of this year, that average it's in excess of 17 hours. That's a 5% increase in wait time over just a year. And what that means is the problem is getting worse rather than getting better.
Mike, we both worked on the provincial election. I remember this being a big part of that platform for this government. So what are they doing now to tackle this issue?
Well, this afternoon we put that question to Christine Elliott, the health minister, and she says the plan is to try to take more of those patients who are stuck in hospital and moving them out into what the province calls reactivation care centres.
There are going to be more beds that are going to be available in those care centers, and I know that individual hospitals are also working on their own solution to expand so that they will have more beds available.
And the Ford government has said it's going to end hallway health care. But Christine Elliott, she acknowledged that the problem has not improved in the past year. And she also says that if the government hadn't made the changes that it has made so far in the hospitals, things would be even worse. Dwight?
Thank you, Mike. All right, call it the big snowfall. Finished with the cold weather came. Is that leaving too?
Well, both of those things, we're sort of seeing them ending. And what I mean by that is we are seeing some milder air push in. We'll take it. I mean, it's not exactly seasonal, but it's going to warm things up. And actually, we've got some additional snow, but compared to what we had, it's nothing like that. Very light in nature. But it provides an interesting scenario for tomorrow morning's commute. So we look at the temperature trend in terms of where our temperatures are. So they're rising through the overnight tonight. So stopping this at 7 a.m., so kind of taking you through towards about that 2-hour period, say 7 to 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Those temperatures for that morning rush are going to be right there around freezing. And as they are, we'll see some melting, some slushiness, plus some areas that are slick because certain things like overpasses, freeze at different temperatures. So it may be a little messy because we're adding on to that a little bit of additional light snow. Now, what's a little bit? All right, we've been having some patchy snow coming through. It will stop at times and then start up again and carry on till about lunch hour tomorrow. And we're looking at about 2 to 4 centimeters all told when you put it all together. However, a little further east, we could get slightly more than that. So say Oshawa, you might see 5 or 6 centimeters. But that temperature will take the milder air. I just think you should allow some extra time tomorrow morning, and then we go to 1 degree. There's more of a warm-up, though, coming. There's a cold down in between. I've got all that information coming up, Dwight.
Sounds like a slushy mess tomorrow morning. Thank you, Colette.
That's right. You got it.
Now, lots of people aren't fans of the cold and snow, but if skiing or snowboarding is your thing, you are in luck. Horseshoe Valley is already getting the season underway, and as Greg Ross found out, it's earlier than ever before.
November snow isn't for everyone, but at Horseshoe Valley Ski Resort, it was welcomed with open skis.
This is huge for the ski industry.
Vice President Jonathan Reed says this year Horseshoe Valley beat its record for the earliest they've been able to open the slopes by 1 day.
Going back to 1995 was the earliest on the 14th.
Word of the early opening quickly spread through the province. This couple drove in from St. Catharines this morning.
It was just a spur of the moment thing. Got up and heard they're open and got in the car and came up.
It was also great news for 12-year-old competitive freestyle skier Charlie Beattie. For you, this is like an extra couple of weeks to train for the season.
Yeah, so I have a couple competitions coming up at the end of November. So this gives me an extra couple of times to get on snow before I leave. All right.
Beattie says the conditions are also ideal. So why is this snow good snow?
It's nice and firm, which means it's faster and you can get more grip on the snow.
There's no doubt the snowfall earlier this week helped, but it's not the main reason they were able to get people on the slopes earlier this year. It's the temperatures, the early cold weather.
We normally don't get this level of cold this early in the year, and especially for such a long period of time. Normally you'll get a night or two, but we've got better part of a week of -5 to -20 conditions.
And as soon as those temperatures dropped, they started pumping out artificial snow with these machines. How much of this is man-made snow versus the actual snowfall we had?
I'd say it's probably about a 70% man-made base.
Reed says they've been able to get a 30-centimeter base on the hills that are currently open. He says if there is a warm spell in the coming weeks, they should be able to withstand it. Greg Ross, CBC News, Barrie.
The city is reminding residents of the role they play in making sure sidewalks are clear after a snowfall like the one we had this week.
There used to be a tagline that said, "Be nice, clear your ice," and that's certainly just as relevant today as it ever has been.
Yeah, we still use that one. Today's press conference, not just about sidewalk shoveling, though. Officials also letting residents know crews are in place to handle whatever winter throws our way. The city has more than 1,500 personnel that can respond day or night for snow clearing. A big job considering there are nearly 6,000 kilometers of roads to plow. Important work is also being done on the ground.
The city is currently spending approximately $159 million to improve the water main distribution system. This includes replacing 40 to 55 kilometers of water main pipes this year and rehabilitating more than 140 kilometers.
The city is also launching a new service on its website. It will allow customers to access real-time information about emergency and planned water service disruptions. It's been more than 2 years since Toronto promised more protections for renters, but some say the city's new system is already broken. The so-called Rent Safe program was under the microscope at City Hall today. Nick Boisvert has more.
It wasn't long ago that Councillor Josh Matlow had big dreams for the city's Rent Safe program.
We believed at that time that we had achieved North America's greatest protection policy for tenants.
Today, he admitted the plan fell far short of that.
Unfortunately, I have to come up and say to you that based on the feedback that I've heard from tenants across the city has been failing them.
The Rent Safe program rolled out in the summer of 2017. It was designed to make apartment buildings safer and help bylaw officers enforce the rules. Some renters say nothing has actually changed.
People are feeling disenfranchised, people are not feeling safe, and they're not feeling comfortable going home sometimes.
Last month, the tenant group Acorn put those problems on display, complaining of cockroaches and a need for repairs at many Toronto apartments. 2 years in, the group says major changes are necessary. Things like a color-coded rating system for buildings, stricter enforcement, and new powers to investigate so-called renovictions. Matlow says he's on board.
And now we've got to get working on making sure that the program does what we said it would do. Protect tenants in their homes and demand that landlords fix the problems when they are raised.
The Housing Committee voted to explore some of those ideas, but City Council will have to approve them later on. Nick Boisvert, CBC News, Toronto.
To withhold that assistance for no good reason other than help with a political campaign made no sense.
A fiery start to the public impeachment inquiry. Will bring you the details from the first day of public hearings coming up after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
On the first day of public impeachment hearings in Washington, lawmakers heard about, quote, highly irregular communications with Ukraine. Democrats allege President Trump used American diplomacy for his personal political gain, but Republicans have been quick to refute that. Ellen Morrow now with the latest.
Bill Taylor, the acting U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, and George Kent, a top State Department official, expressed their alarm as they say it became clear that U.S. military assistance to Ukraine was being held up to pressure Kiev to investigate Trump political rival Joe Biden and his family.
To withhold that assistance for no good reason other than help with the political campaign made no sense. It was counterproductive to all of what we had been trying to do. It was illogical. It could not be explained. It was crazy.
Taylor also revealed new information, telling investigators that one of his staffers overheard a conversation between U.S. Ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland, and President Trump. Taylor says his staffer asked the ambassador about the phone call, and Sondland, a political appointee, said President Trump cared more about investigating the Bidens than he did about Ukraine, a strategic ally.
Have you watched the hearings at all?
Just down Pennsylvania Avenue, President Trump dismissed the hearings.
I'm too busy to watch it. It's a witch hunt. It's a hoax. I'm too busy to watch it.
The president says he hasn't watched the hearings, but he tweeted video clips of Republicans defending him during the proceedings. Some of the Republican exchanges with the witnesses were fiery.
Mr. I was not wrong about what I told you, which is what I heard. That's all I've said. I've told you what I heard.
And that's the point. What you heard did not happen.
So Republicans on the attack, while Democrats say the testimony backs up the allegation that President Trump abused his power for political gain. This is just the first in a series of televised hearings. We'll hear from former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, on Friday, with more testified hearings scheduled next week. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
After testimony wrapped up on Capitol Hill this afternoon, Donald Trump held a news conference with the visiting president of Turkey, as you saw in the story there. Now, the U.S. president was asked about today's impeachment hearings.
Are you talking about the witch hunt? Is that what you mean? Is that what you're talking about? I hear it's a joke. I haven't watched for 1 minute because I've been with the president, which is much more important as far as I'm concerned. This is a sham and shouldn't be allowed.
The leaders were also asked about Turkey's purchase of a Russian air defense system, which has angered the U.S. and other NATO allies. Trump said the purchase created what he called serious challenges, but he hoped they could be overcome. For his part, the Turkish leader says it's time countries around the world take back their nationals who are ISIS detainees, and he said Turkey could repatriate 1 million refugees to a safe zone in northern Syria. Now, while the U.S. president is being criticized in Washington, a former U.S. president is getting a much warmer reception in Halifax. Barack Obama's event in that province tonight has generated a lot of excitement, and for some, it's a dream come true.
This place, this is Nova Scotia, has a strong African Nova Scotian community that identifies with Africa. So it's a homecoming for both Barack Obama, but also for the African migrants to come and join their family here and hear such a great speaker.
Even back home, my mom is like, you have to just take a picture with him or meet him, just gain something from this as much as you can.
The 9,000 tickets sold out in 22 minutes, and there was a waiting list of 3,400 people. The organizers of tonight's event started asking for Obama 2 years ago, and it took 18 months to get a yes. It is the worst flooding the Italian city has seen in 50 years. More than 80% of Venice went underwater during peak tide. We'll bring you more details from the floating city after the break. 2 people have been arrested in connection with the apparent accidental shooting of a teenage girl. It happened on Friday in the Weston Road and Finch Avenue West area. The 14-year-old was found inside a low-rise apartment building with a gunshot wound in one of her legs. Police say she sustained serious but non-life-threatening injuries. The 2 youths arrested cannot be named under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. They were charged with 8 offenses, each including careless use and storage of a firearm. And the 3rd and final person has been arrested in a shooting caught on security camera that injured 5 teens. The shooting happened in the hallway of a low-rise complex in the Black Creek and Chathui area on October 30th. Police say 3 men made their way to a hallway where a group of teens were gathered. 2 of them opened fire. On Monday, police arrested the last suspect, a youth who cannot be named. 2 men aged 20 and 21 were previously arrested and charged. All 3 have been charged with 5 counts of attempted murder. The last of Zach Nuruddin's attackers was sentenced today. 34-year-old William Cummins was sentenced to 25 years in prison for the first-degree murder of Nuruddin. This comes nearly 4 years after he and 2 other men fatally attacked the aspiring music journalist outside a Toronto restaurant. The other men accused in the killing were previously convicted of lesser charges in a separate trial. Cummings was also sentenced to 2 years for assault, which will be served concurrently with his life sentence for murder. A 73-year-old woman has died after a fire in Etobicoke despite the frantic efforts of her husband to save her. It happened last night in a home on 8th Street in the Lakeshore and Islington area. Witnesses say the victim's husband returned over the supper hour to find the home on fire. He rushed inside but was turned back by the smoke and flames. Residents of areas affected by bushfires in Australia are returning to what's left of their homes.
It is what it is. It's happened. Now I take photos. I wait until I let us come back and clear the area, and then I rebuild.
The amount of work that was put into this place to make it the home it is, and then to lose it in one night with a fire.
About 100 homes have been destroyed in the fires, and the work to bring them under control still has a long way to go. Dozens of fires continue to burn, and with temperatures expected to climb to near the 40 degrees Celsius mark in the coming days, the situation could worsen. So far, 3 people have died. Bushfires are common in Australia, but many say they were caught off guard by how early the fires arrived this year. The mayor of Venice is calling for the Italian city to be declared a national disaster zone. He blames climate change for storms causing the worst flooding in half a century. Margaret Evans has more.
The siren's call of Venice taking on a whole new meaning as floodwaters reach their highest level in 50 years. High water warnings still sounding across the city today. Residents and tourists sloshing through submerged streets in search of higher ground or rubber boots.
This is particularly bad.
Huge parts of Venice are now underwater. The highest tide hitting overnight in the midst of gusting winds and rain. The floodwaters make for some arresting images, not least a Neptune look-alike swimming in St. Mark's Square. But the famed basilica next to it with its ancient crypt is now submerged beneath a meter of water. The city's mayor calls it a harbinger of things to come. We need everybody to help, he says, and we must be united to face what are clearly the effects of climate change. Venice is a collection of over 100 tiny islands in a lagoon along the Adriatic Sea. Some call it the floating city. Today, its legendary gondolas were either washed up on shore or tethered, fears of potentially higher tides to come. Construction of a flood barrier designed to protect Venice from high tides was begun back in 1984, but it's still not finished, and corruption allegations abound. They've done nothing, says this man. In Italy, that's how it is. Our politicians are all thieves. They should be in jail. Local authorities are calling the flooding of Venice a national emergency. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Just a beautiful city underwater there. We have different issues here, Colette.
We do have different issues, and we are looking at a situation where eventually all the snow is going to melt, and we know what happens as it does around the city in terms of we could get into some issues with looking at some potential areas where we're prone to flooding. There's something in the short term, though, that I want to kind of walk you through in terms of our temperatures coming up tonight and a little additional snow. Before we get there, I don't want to leave out the fact how cold it was this morning and that our new record low, so we've just established this, see, 2019, this date, minus 13.7. The old record was minus 9.5 from 1986. So there we go. Never mind these averages of where we should be for this time of year. We are just so far off the mark. Our current temperatures all in the negatives, actually doing better in Toronto than, say, Hamilton or Peterborough. So -4 at the moment, -6 into Hamilton. Factor in the winds, and this is what it feels like. A little bit better for you there in St. Catharines as the winds have backed off. But we're getting some patchy I wanted to say showers, I wish. No, scattered flurries and then into some light snow. And at times it's going to back off through the overnight hours, but it has been beginning to move in. And so we'll get times when it stops, then it fills back in again. And this is going to kind of carry on into tomorrow morning. So for the morning commute and towards about the lunch hour before it moves out of here. So in terms of what we may see from additional snowfall, we're looking at a couple of centimeters and maybe adding a couple more, 1, 2 more tomorrow morning. So getting up there to that 3 to 4 centimeters. Into Friday, we have some cloud cover and some flurries, but behind that, clearer skies move in. That's a nice setup to go into the weekend because it will bring us sunshine. The problem is it's some Arctic air, so it is going to drop things down for Friday night into Saturday before we can start to bring those temperatures back up again. Speaking of temperatures, this is what I wanted to get to in terms of our temperatures rising overnight tonight. Now, this obviously, as we're just kind of coming up towards the freezing mark, isn't going to be enough to melt everything around here. That's not going to happen until the end of the weekend or into the beginning of next week. But what it does is it melts certain areas and certain surfaces as this temperature overnight is rising and coming up towards freezing, and we go to 0 to 1 to 2 degrees tomorrow afternoon. So some areas then refreeze, and we get into some potential slick spots on sidewalks that haven't been treated or any roads that haven't been treated as well. So tomorrow morning, because it's going to be wet and kind of sloppy, I would still allow a little extra time for the morning commute especially. A look at Friday, the temperature comes up a little bit. Then there's that Arctic air, so Friday night -10, -3 on Saturday, and then we start that climb, those steps upward, Dwight, as we go into Sunday and into Monday with some milder air coming back. Calling that mild, crazy, right?
Well, it looks as Santa Claus comes to town, he's bringing some mild temps with him.
I guess we've been good.
Thank you, Colette. We have.
You're welcome.
It's hard to believe that we are the champions, but we are.
Yes, we are, Nav. You're used to seeing him courtside, but today he was at Social Media Week talking about the power of inclusion. Maribel Tru caught up with him. We had a close-up look at that beautiful NBA championship ring. We'll show you coming up. It was an incredible run for the Toronto Raptors last season, winning their first NBA championship and celebrating along with the team were the fans, including superfan Nav Bhatia. He was at Social Media Week talking about the Raptors and the power of inclusion. Marvel 2 caught up with him to talk about his new bling and the Raptors this year.
We have to start with the ring, Nav, because this may be the first time that people are really getting an up-close and personal look. So this is the exact same one that the players
It's the
got?
player's ring. It's the player's ring.
Oh my goodness, this is just so much bling.
There's 645 diamonds, a lot of rubies, and 150 grams of gold. And your name, my name is engraved just like any other player.
As it should be. I mean, if anyone who isn't on the court deserves a ring, I think a lot of people would agree that it is you.
A lot of love and thanks to the Raptors for doing this, because this was not expected.
Well, after all of the years that you supported, from day one, you
Yes.
are the original,
From the minute one.
from minute one in the Sky Dome
Yes,
days.
Sky Dome
And
days.
how did that feel for you, that moment that they won the NBA championship?
I tell you, it was. It took me a few months to pinch myself and see that if it was a reality, that it is happening to us. It is still, sometime I say it's hard to believe that we are the champions.
I'm coming. Oh my God. How are you? I love you. I love you. I need a hug. Wait, I need a big hug. Oh, squeeze me. I want to come with you.
It belongs to all the fans all around the world as much as it belongs to me. So everybody is a fan, has the same ownership of this ring like I do.
So let's talk about the team this season. There's a lot of new faces, and we're
Yes.
getting to see them play now.
Yeah, but we still have 9 of the other players still there. So the core of the team is still, I would say, from the last year.
So are you confident, because there's so many injuries right now, and
It's
we're
okay,
seeing a lot of the bench warmers?
I'd rather happen in the early part of the season than the later part of the season. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay. It's giving the chance to the players, the bench players, who otherwise won't get an opportunity to play. So this gives coach a different entirely spectrum for the players who are on the bench to see them what they are made of.
Are you seeing anyone who's impressing you in particular?
Of course. OG is impressing me, but he's hurt right now.
Yeah.
Your guy, Bouchard. Oh, what a difference. How about Jefferson? First time 2 days ago in the Lakers game, he was called after the injury. And look at that, what he's bringing to the table. And these are the opportunity for these bench players to show what they are.
You've been with the team, as you say, day one, to every single game. Nobody else can say that. That's why you're the super fan.
Yeah.
Where does that come from, that dedication to a
It's
team
a
that didn't always give,
It's a dedication, it's a loyalty. It's because I treat them like my family. They're my family. These kids are my family. I treat them like my kids, and I treat, so they're very close to my heart. Everything in my life is scheduled around the Raptors schedule.
Finally, we're into the next season. Everyone's wondering if the Raptors have it in them to repeat the championship. What do you think?
Yes, I think it's so good that we are under the radar. We are not, nobody's talking about us. We are not any favorite to win or anything. I like that position. We are not, we are not in the discussion, but we are going to surprise everyone, just like we did last year.
You heard it from the superfan himself.
When does being on technology amplify who we are, and when does it diminish the experience?
Imagine unplugging for a full day. That's what this family does once a week. I'll speak to the brains behind the tech Sabbath on why she does it coming up. This week, Toronto and cities like London and Manila are taking part in Social Media Week. Techies and everyday users are coming together to explore how social media is shaping business and everyday life. But what would it be like to unplug for a whole day? That's what filmmaker and Webby Awards founder Tiffany Schlane and her family do once a week. She writes about it in her new book, 24/6. I asked her why she started taking time away from tech a decade ago.
I felt like I was distracted all the time. I was even waiting to be distracted. And I didn't really like the way that felt. And I had this, my father got very sick, and I think it was like one of those moments where I'm like, what are we doing here? We're not paying attention to the people right in front of us. So my family and I started turning off all screens one day a week. We call it our tech Shabbats, kind of updating the concept of Shabbat and Sabbath.
Yep.
And we've done it for 10 years now, and it's literally the best thing that I've ever done in my life, which is why I wrote the book.
And I think it's kind of strange coming from you, though, because you're a techie.
I am.
You created the Webbies, for goodness sakes.
I know.
How do you
Well, I think even more so. I guess that, I know people can't believe that, but...
Yeah, you're an early adapter.
I'm an early adapter in, early adapter out. But I still love it. You know, my husband is a professor of robotics. We obviously love the tech.
Yes.
Just not all the time. And I think that's going to be the fundamental question of our age is when does being on technology amplify who we are, and when does it diminish the experience?
Do you cheat? Are there times where you're like, yeah, I've got this project on the go?
Life is messy. There's going to be some times where it doesn't work. But, you know, 95% of the weekends for the last 10 years, we do it, and I crave it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, we're both parents of teenage daughters.
Yeah. You can't even imagine.
How do you get your teenage
I'll tell you
daughter
this,
off that
okay.
phone? Yeah.
Because I brought her, Odessa, on to some bookstores because people couldn't believe it. And somebody asked her, and she said, you know, and she's a junior in high school, which in America, that's like the most intense
mine's
year.
a junior too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's like, I love having a day where I'm not doing homework and I'm not responding and posting, and she just feels a relief, a sense of relief. And I think we think that our teenage kids or our kids in general wouldn't like it, but again, it's not depriving them. If you kind of fill it with other wonderful things that they enjoy doing that just don't involve screens, it replenishes.
If we were to try this, what are some of the tips you can do to have it be successful for us, just like it was for you?
Well, I think, again, don't say, oh, we're going to turn off all screens on Friday. No one's going to be happy with that. But if you have everyone in your family say, what do you wish we did more as a family? Or what do you wish you had more time to do? Everyone writes that list. Fill the day with that. And then on Friday night, invite people over for a meal. If you like to cook, that's great. If you don't, take out. But we've also lost that art. So every Friday we have people over. It's actually called a Shabbat meal. So we do that part. Although we're not really doing Shabbat for religious reasons, it's more of the practice.
It's like a cultural thing.
Yeah, exactly. So we always have friends and family, and if they want to go out, they'll bring their friends over Friday night. And then Saturday, make it a great day. Fill it with the things you wish you had more time to do. And, you know, Friday afternoon I print out if we have a schedule. We've done it with 2 kids in soccer, and you just have to print out what fields are you going to?
Remember those days, yeah.
With your hand. We got a vintage record player just for fun, but you know, if we cook a lot on Saturday, and we do use the Alexa because it's not a screen. So we've made you'll find the rules that work for you. But I can't tell you the urgency I felt to write this book was because do we want to live in a society where everyone's like this all the time when they're talking to you and they're bumping into each other when they're walking down the street? It's like a Wall-E movie. Do we want that? I don't think so. So it's a day that you'll feel more connected to your kids, yourself, your partner if you have one, and just remembering your humanity. I mean, so much good that tech does, but it's just not good all the time. That's the message. That's the message.
That's a really good message.
Oh,
Appreciate
good talking
the book.
to you.
Thank you.
Good talking to you.
Makes a good point there, folks. Now, today was cold for this time in November. We'll get one last check with Colette, and I think there's a warm-up coming. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick break. Leeches, lampreys, and bats, oh my, the Royal Ontario Museum wants you to quench a thirst for blood-sucking animals you didn't even know you had. The new exhibit is called Bloodsuckers, From Legends to Leeches, but it opens soon. We got an early sneak peek at the parasitic party today.
The animals being able to take your blood, your very life force, without you knowing it or without you noticing it is quite spectacular. They need blood thinners in their saliva. They need local anesthesia. They need to be able to pierce thick skin. They need to be able to get to the blood and then keep it flowing whilst they're digesting it. Different ways in which these animals are so highly evolved, so stealth and so good at what they do, that they can take blood from the most intelligent organism on the planet without them even knowing it.
I think black flies are one of the great misunderstood groups of organisms, and of course it has a special place in the minds of Ontarians, especially anyone who lives up in cottage country. What people don't appreciate is that the larvae live in huge numbers in our streams and rivers and are a critical part of the food web. I think everybody has an innate fear and fascination of blood-sucking organisms. They've been with us for a long time, ever since the dinosaur era, and I guess we have this natural revulsion to them because they want to take out of us our very life source. But to give them a break, that's what they need to propagate themselves.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to see this. It's a little scary. The warm-up is coming, but there's some more snow coming too, or no?
Yes,
Okay.
there is. You've got it right.
I keep paying attention to her, folks.
Not as much snow as we had, but we are going to add another few centimeters tonight, say 2 to 4 centimeters between tonight and tomorrow morning. It'll stop at times and then kind of come back. So it's going to be a little bit patchy in the manner that it moves through and fairly light. But still, we're still, mid-November, and here we go. So overnight tonight, the other thing, though, that I've been mentioning is just the way that the temperatures are actually rising through the overnight, coming up towards the freezing mark, and tomorrow we do go to a high of 1. When we've got all these temperatures right around 1, right around 0, right around freezing, essentially you get freezing and then thaw and freezing and thaw. And so...
we get slush.
Yeah, we get slush and some slick spots. It's something to be mindful of.
Be careful out there, everybody. That's it for us tonight. Thank you for watching. Mike Weiss has you covered at 11. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.